Welcome to the Dump Truck Toolbox. I'm Alan, and today we're talking about how commercial drivers who lose their ride can start over as a dump truck driver. Today I want to discuss starting over, someone who wants to switch the type of truck they drive. So if you're already a truck driver and you're worried about losing your ride, here are my top 10 tips on how to find a new job driving a dump truck. So why listen to me? I spent 13 years working in human resources, helping large companies hire the best employees. I was also a professor of business. Along the way, I became a certified coach, and I helped a lot of people find new and better jobs. About 9 years ago, I came back to professional driving. I've applied to many driving jobs since then, getting an offer for some jobs and being rejected for others. Besides driving, I was a safety manager and trainer for new transit bus drivers. And so I've been on both sides of the desk in driver hiring. Okay, tip 0 before we start on my top 10. Don't even think about starting your own dump truck business until you have years of experience driving someone else's dump truck. I have a video on that whole issue of whether now's the right time to start a dump truck business, but especially if you've never driven a dump truck, it just isn't going to work. Tip number 1, you don't need to write a resume or practice answering interview questions. Those are important skills for getting an office job, but in my experience, fancy resumes and canned answers to questions aren't very important to get you a good driving job. It comes down to credentials, your motor vehicle record, and a road test. So tip number 2, get the right credentials. You may have a professional driving job, but maybe you don't have your CDL. And so the jobs that are the most interesting for driving, in my opinion, and that pay the best almost always require a commercial driver's license. So get your CDL if you don't have it yet, and get as many endorsements as you can: air brakes, tanker, hazmat, etc. Construction companies especially love drivers who can do more and drive more different types of trucks. Okay, tip number 3, if you don't have a CDL, get it for free if you can, but don't sign a guarantee forcing you to work for a company that's providing CDL training to you. I got my first CDL in the late 1970s from University Transit Service. It was called a chauffeur's license back then, and UTS paid me while I was training and provided the vehicle for my driving test. I was then qualified to drive for them, but I had no obligation to work for them any longer than I wanted to. That's the best and cheapest way to get your CDL. After college, I kept my CDL for another 9 years or so, and then I let it lapse to save money. So tip number 4 is hang on to your CDL even if you don't have a commercial driving job right now. And so especially in uncertain economic times, that credential is so important in opening the door for potentially good jobs for you. Now, you are going to have to pay for your annual physical. Once again, in uncertain economic times, that is an investment in keeping your options open in case things change unexpectedly. 9 years ago, I wanted to get back into driving, but I didn't have a CDL, so I repeated tip number 3. I went through training, this time with Hampton Roads Transit, big local bus company. Once again, they paid me during training. They provided a bus for me for the driving test, and they gave me a job driving for them. But again, I had no obligation to continue working for them. So tip number 5, your first driving job or your current driving job doesn't have to be your lifelong driving job. So check your pride, get your foot in the door by driving any commercial vehicle. Maybe start with buses like I did or whatever. Once you get that first taste of real world driving experience, you can start looking for the job you really want. There are people who say a professional driver is a professional driver. Once you get good at driving, you can drive any type of vehicle. Wrong. Tip number 6, you need experience with a specific vehicle and all the non-driving operating tasks for different types of driving jobs. And dump trucks are no different. When I was a driver trainer for a transit company, we hired an Army veteran who had driven every type of wheeled vehicle in the Army. Sounds great, right? Well, despite my best efforts at training him, and after he finished training, coaching him, he could never get the hang of driving a bus. He had multiple minor accidents, mostly involving backing the vehicle. He was eventually let go. So, assuming he was successful driving vehicles in the Army, I cannot explain why he couldn't drive a bus, but he couldn't do it. If I was hiring a dump truck driver, I would strongly prefer a driver who has worked dump trucks before, and I would want them to have experience hauling the materials I need them to haul. Asphalt is not the same as stone or dirt or sand. And so you need specific experience. And the question is, how do I get the experience I need to get the job I want when I have to have experience to get that job? So tip number 7, if you're switching to dump trucks from another type of commercial vehicle, check your pride at the door and take a less attractive job, at least to start with. I drove transit buses for many years. I was a safety manager trainer. I looked good if you were going to hire a bus driver. But I wanted to drive a dump truck, and I wasn't qualified to drive a dump truck. So I found a job with a small company that paid low wages, offered no benefits, and had old trucks. After initial training, the truck they had for me was declared permanently out of service. I then found another dump truck job that was a 75-minute commute from home and paid $2 an hour less than that first company. It's moving ahead a little bit, but it wasn't a great leap ahead. After about a year with the second company, I found my dream job driving a big orange triaxle for basic construction. Great. I would have never gotten that job if I hadn't worked at the other two places first. Then recently we got bought out by Allen Myers, which is a big construction company with a large fleet of beautiful black dump trucks. I was grandfathered into a job driving for them. This is a great job I'm excited to have, but I would have never, ever worked for Allen Myers if I didn't take jobs for less pay and less attractive work first. So check your pride and take any dump truck driving job that you can get, at least for a little while. So, you need the credentials and you need specific experience driving a dump truck. But that's not all. Tip number 8, you need a clean driving record. Many fleets require +5 points on your official motor vehicle record. I always print out my MVR before I apply for a driving job. That allows me to check that I don't have something on there I'm not expecting. It's also something that I bring with me when I apply for any driving job. Now, they're gonna go pull my motor vehicle record themselves, but still I want to establish my driving credentials when I apply. And so it's not just plus 5 points. Most employers are very strict on prior DUIs. So avoid drunk driving at all costs. If you don't have a clean motor vehicle record, you may be able to find a somewhat lesser dump truck driving job where they really, really need a driver, but it's not going to be ideal. So if you don't have a clean record now, just start working on it. Drive more carefully, don't speed, don't be reckless. Take a class if that can take some minus points off your record, but get that clean MVR. Okay, tip number 9, you need to provide a clean pre-employment drug test. Now, most companies do not test for alcohol pre-employment. We'll talk about alcohol in a minute. But a failed pre-employment drug test ends your chances of getting a job with that company probably forever. I heard a drug and alcohol program manager for a big bus system say, I don't understand how anybody fails a pre-employment drug test. It's the one drug test you can study for and pass every time by staying clean long enough for the drugs to clear your system. So be clean before you apply for a job driving a dump truck. But you have to do more than pass one pre-employment drug test. You'll have to show up to work clean and sober every day. And you'll have to live drug-free as long as you drive. There are random drug and alcohol tests, post-accident drug and alcohol tests, and reasonable suspicion drug and alcohol tests. In most cases, a failed test will get you fired and possibly listed on a DOT database that could prevent you from getting a driving job elsewhere. So show up to work clean and sober every day. Tip number 10, you've applied and they've called you in and said, hey, come on in, we want to talk to you. So whether they mention it or not, be ready for a driving test. I'm trying to think. Everywhere except one place I've applied for a job as a dump truck driver, they required a driving test right at that moment. It wasn't, next week, let's schedule it. What do you think, 8 a.m. on Thursday? No, it's like, okay, things look good. Here, let's go out to the truck. So be ready. How do you get ready for a driving test? Go to the interview rested, alert, and confident in your driving ability. Do the test drive for the dump truck employer just like you did your CDL driving test. Use your signals for all turns, all lane changes, and all merges. Full stop at every stop sign and full stop at every right turn on red. I actually had one person say to me, normally you want to have a smooth stop, but at a stop sign or a right turn on red, get a bounce. Put the brakes on hard enough that the truck goes whoomp, and that shows them that's a full stop. Accelerate smoothly and brake smoothly, other than it, full stops. Slow down for stale green lights and watch your go, no-go point, because a hard stop, because you're going too fast when the light changes, is almost as bad as running a red light during a driving test. Maintain your lane position and be ready to back safely and accurately. Often it's the last thing you do. You pull back into the yard and they say, okay, back it into that spot over there. Now here's a bonus tip. Bring the right attitude to the job interview. Depending on where you drive, there may be different standards, different things they're looking for, but I use the golden rule. I want to have the attitude in the interview that I would want my fellow drivers, my foreman or fleet manager to have at work. And here's the attitude I bring. I do what's asked of me and more. I will be safe, and I will be compliant with company rules. If you get the job driving a dump truck, don't change from your interview. Keep your driving record clean, stay clean and sober, drive every day like it's your driving test, and have the attitude you demonstrated in the job interview. Then you can be set up for a long and successful career driving a dump truck. So thank you for joining me on the channel today. If you found today's video useful or interesting, please click the like button, smash the notifications button, comment below with your experiences in getting a job, driving a dump truck or any type of truck. I'm Alan, and I look forward to seeing you again soon on the Dump Truck Toolbox.